Hello everyone, my name is Derek Sinnott. I'm a Director of Lean Construction Ireland and I will be your facilitator today. I would like to do this Lean Construction Ireland presented by Sinead Savage, Associate Director, and Breda Corrigan, Chief Information Officer at Mannings Construction Group. The title of this webinar is Digitalisation of Systems and Processes. If you have any questions, please type them into the question box and we will consolidate and ask Sinead and Breda after the presentation. If there are any questions we don't get answered during that time, we will follow up with an email. The speakers for today are Sinead Savage and Breda Corrigan. Sinead is a Chartered Construction Manager and Fellow of the Chartered Institute of Building. She's 25 years experience working in the construction industry and holds a postgraduate diploma in project management from Trinity College, Dublin, an honours degree in quantity surveying, and a higher national diploma in building technology. Sinead is a member of the CIF Skills Education and Training Committee, the CIF Communication and Digital Marketing Committee, and the Construction Professional SkillNet Steering Group. She's past chair of the Council of Chartered Institute of Building of Ireland. Breda joined Mannings in April 2020 with a mandate to digitise the business through cloud services, identify opportunities to streamline the business through process change, develop and gather data from across the business to deliver business intelligence dashboards, and to make data available for interrogation through Power BI. He's worked in construction for over 30 years, starting with geosurveying in Bolton Street, subsequently completed a full-time CAD training course before commencing with a leading architectural firm, BKD Architects. Breda became a certified Autodesk trainer, working with a leading IT support company, providing customer support, on-site installations, customization of software and training. She later moved to Mott MacDonald as a BIM manager and later assumed a role as BIM lead for Ireland, supporting projects globally. I will now pass you over to Sinead and Breda.
Thanks, Derek, and thank you everyone for your time today. So Breda and myself are going to focus on really what Mannings have introduced in terms of lean and digitalisation of the business. So just to give you a little bit of background, I want to talk a little bit about Mannings Construction, then moving on to how we have introduced lean into the business. We're going to talk a little bit about one of our projects in Adamstown, County Dublin, and then Breda's going to talk about digitalisation of the business with a Q&A session at the end. So moving on to Mannings. So we are an innovative main contractor and design build partner. We were established in 1975. We operate across a range of sectors. I suppose our forte would be retail, logistics, technology. We're also operating in the office, pharma, health, mixed use and residential space. Typical projects, I suppose, would be around the 10 to 20 million value, but we have completed projects in the range of 10,000 right up to 70 million, including our project in Donabate for Tesco, which I'll touch on briefly later. We have offices in Dublin, Ballyclare and Milton Keynes, and Mannings Group employs over 80 full-time staff. So, as I mentioned, our offices are Dublin, Ballyclare and England, and we typically operate throughout Ireland and throughout the UK. Just included some of the clients that we have worked with. We're currently doing a lot of work with Tesco. We have a project in Adamstown with Quintain. We're working out near the airport with Henderson Park currently. And we do a lot of work with Aldi presently as well. So this is some of the projects that recent and current projects, the crossings in Adamstown. I'll have a time-lapse video just touching on that later. The Decathlon project beside IKEA Ballymun, completed in 2020. the mixed use development in Castleknock, both of those projects in the region of 10-12 million value. The crossings in Adamstown, again, as I said, I'll mention later, but in the region of 29 million. Tesco Liffey Valley was a fit-out project. We do an awful lot of work, so one of our clients, long-term clients, mixed use development in Shinehill, County Dublin, and then Aldi Belmullet, and we're currently on site with Aldi in a couple of other locations as well. This is the Donna Bay Distribution Centre here, so that was a 70 million project for Tesco, and quite a substantial project. I'm not sure if you can see on the screen, but these little dots are actually large articulated vehicles, so they're quite minuscule in this image. So I'll just move on to the next slide. So in terms of, I suppose, the business, we are ISO 9001 accredited, our quality management system. We have the 14001 environmental management system and the safety cert, health and safety management system. So I suppose just in terms of embracing lean, in 2020, I suppose I started in the business in September 2019 and introduced the directors to lean construction. And in early 2020, we made a decision to embrace the principles of lean and to bring that through the business. So we fairly quickly became a corporate member of Lean Construction Ireland. We put staff in all of our regions on the Lean Six Sigma training course, and I suppose I should mention that a lot of that training initially took place during COVID. So we used the downtime during COVID to upskill our staff. We also brought external people on board to help us facilitate lessons learned sessions on projects that were completed and to train us to be able to carry out those going forward. And then probably around June 2020, we started our first glass planner workshop on the project out in Breda, and we have carried that on as well. And I think it's important that we have continued on with the internal and external lean training sessions to bring everybody along on this journey, and I'll touch on that on another slide. So the commitment really, from Mannings' point of view, is focused on these lean principles. Respect for people, generate value both for Mannings and for our clients, eliminate waste within the company, and we'll touch on that in terms of the lean elimination of waste later. Focus on flow, continuous improvement, and optimize the whole, and Breda's going to touch on those as well. So implementing lean, I suppose we see it as the endless transformation of waste into value, and we're striving to implement all those principles across all of the projects. We have appointed a dedicated lean champion who is tasked with ensuring that our approach is implemented across all the projects. And then we're using the direct observation and lessons learned to ensure that the continuous improvement filters through across the business. So lean thinking, this slide really, I think, is important. Lean thinking has to be at the fore. Communication is absolutely crucial. You need communication throughout the business and with all stakeholders, subcontractors, the full supply chain, consultants, everybody on the project. I think we all know that. We operate a digitalized system, and this enhances our collaborative working environment. So information is readily available in the cloud to our teams, and I use the word teams in the broadest sense. We are operating the last planner approach on projects, so we're getting everybody into the room at the start of the projects. We're planning tasks collaboratively, and again, all stakeholders are accepting their responsibilities and this really does help the projects run smoothly. Our managers and supervisors, and this is something that we have been doing for a long time, we schedule the weekly look ahead meetings, and I think that allows us to eliminate waste and maximise communication on projects. And then I think as well, crucially, encouraging innovative thinking and finding more efficient ways of working is one of the key elements for us. So this slide just focuses on some of the education training that we have employed. The slide here is Eva in our head office site on site, going through with one of our supply chain the induction process. And what we've done is we've put people on the Lean Six Sigma through LCI and through SkillNet. And so the introduction to Lean was a great course short 4-hour session, gives people a flavour of what Lean is all about, and then they progress on to the various yellow belt and green belt and so on courses as well. The last planner training, again, we've brought our supply chain into the room for these sessions. The lessons learned, I'll touch on that later, but it's no blame, so everybody's in open conversation. One-to-one training, not just with our own staff, but as I say, also with our subcontractors as well. And then also what we find is bringing in lunchtime learning sessions, which we typically hold every 2 weeks, and also bespoke video tutorials. So, you know, a 2-minute video showing people how they can access information. It goes a very long way, we find. So I just mentioned the lessons learned. Basically, it's a safe environment. We cover all aspects from tender and pre-construction, what went right, what went wrong, right through to design, safety, quality, construction, technical issues, commercial issues, environmental, and so on. And then I think it's again important the feedback from all attendees is encouraged and required, and then implementing those learnings. So in terms of Tim Woods and the elimination of waste in practice, we're going to give you a few examples of how we've managed to implement that. So transport, we touched on that in the case study in Allenstein, where we redesigned the floor slabs and reduced the volume of deliveries to site. The inventory, Breda's going to go into detail on the common data environment and how that actually reduces emails and paperwork. Motion, again, the permits, the online permits helps eliminate that. The use of the common data environment eliminates waiting times as well. You're not waiting for, so long for RFIs, and you could be out on site and you're able to log in remotely and find the answers. Overproduction, we've used the induction forms and other digital forms similarly for over-processing the cleanup notices, etc. And then we're using snagging apps as well to help eliminate and minimize defects. And then I touched on the skills earlier, the learning. I think it's constant and it's regular. The online training videos is only one element of it, but just upskilling people and just sending that message out on a repeated basis, so important. So this is the project that I mentioned in Allenstein. So it's a multi-story car park with 2 large retail units. Tesco and Aldi are taking the 2 units on the ground floor. It's a 29 million project, which includes over 8,500 square meters of retail space. The Grable panels, which you can see, are installed, and then also the 40-meter span precast concrete slabs. So it's we're just hoping to hand that over in the next few days, hopefully. So in terms of some of the systems that we're using, we find the facial recognition, high volumes of staff on site, and using the facial recognition turnstiles has improved security. There's a streamlined entry process, so people are in and out fairly quickly. It eliminates any manual signing in or using badges or security passes or anything like that. And from a management point of view, it's real-time data. So our management team on site, particularly the health and safety team, have real-time access to who is actually on site in terms of numbers. And then, of course, you're only admitting people who have already gone through the induction process, which we're going to touch on again later. So I mentioned the concrete slabs, and by working with our supply chain, what we did was we increased the length of slabs, reducing the overall quantity, and that meant a reduction in the number of trucks arriving to and from site. So I think that's a good example of how we've eliminated waste in terms of transport and potentially over processing or overproduction. We're also using the construction cameras on site, and we've been using them for a while, but I think we're still adding value to these. So the system can be set up that it sends regular images, regular photographs from the cameras to whoever's email. It can be weekly updates to the client. It can be weekly updates to our own team, or QS, or site managers, or even to our supply chain who are waiting to find out, of course they're being told in regular meetings anyway, but if they want to log in and check, what the situation is, they can do that. It's a live view and it's real-time view of the site. So again, you can use that for taking a quick screenshot of something. If you're asking for a delivery of something to a certain position within the site, it's easy to mark that up. The before and after, again, I'm going to show you a quick time lapse. But you can go back and look at the project, a couple of weeks ago, or even beyond that. So that's a handy tool. And the information is all recorded and stored in the cloud, so it's there. We have access to that at any stage through the project and beyond. We can share the live or recorded videos or snippets of videos, and then we can use the time lapse, which I'm going to show you. And then something that we also have looked at recently, and particularly on the Adamstown project, is the vehicle recognition. And from quantity surveying point of view, you're able to check the number of trucks arriving on site and leaving. So that's quite a useful tool. So I'm hoping this is going to actually play. So it's fairly well set up, but we had a couple of cameras installed on this project. So the initial project gives you almost an aerial view, and you can see when the slabs are going in. It's easy at any point to roll back in time and check did something go in, or did something not go in, or again, as I say, the site managers can use this function to communicate with so the supply chain as well. So that's what this is the second camera angle here. So okay, I'm going to click on. So we'll move on to digitalisation of the business. I'm going to hand over to Breda.
Okay, good to speak with you. And just if we start off by where we started with where I started within Mannings, they had just received all the ISO accreditation. They've got involved in lean, they've seen where they want to go, which I think is an important aspect of any change within a company, is that you actually have the vision of where you want to be. So that had been set up, and then I was invited into the company in order to make that vision happen. So if we just go through, we were using a lot of cloud-based platforms. The idea is, as you know, streamlining processes, try to get involvement and buy-in from your supply chain as well as your staff, and then to look at individual places where you can make easy wins. So, for example, on the induction forms, to reduce the amount of time that's taken on site. The common data environment is something with which I think everybody probably on this call has been part of. So you understand the benefit of sharing information. And this is like from us, we receive all the information from, from our design team, from the client, and then we have to share with our subbies. So it's that flow of information, making that as seamless as possible, and also ensuring that everybody has access to the correct information at the correct time. So that reduces a lot, as we were saying, with the emails, a lot of the work that has to happen around, have you got this? What's the latest one? Whatever. So it takes all that out of it. And I would be fairly confident that almost everybody on this call has been on a common data environment of some kind. And we will go take a little bit of a look through it. And the elimination of paper-based systems, as we said, eliminating forms from site. One of the big wins with that has been issuing permits, because we have our cloud-based system to issue permits, and it can be done on your mobile phone. Now, a lot of these things have been around for quite a while, but I think that the maturity level within them now is much greater than it was. So things actually work. I think on some of these systems have had a growth over the years. So with, I'm going to say COVID, it has really pushed people into the digital space. And that's pushed back on the suppliers as well to ensure that what they're supplying is fit for purpose. When we look at the business intelligence dashboards, that is the key part of when you gather the information, that you actually use the information, that you ensure that your projects are not in silos, and that across the group you can have access to pertinent information around suppliers, around even just how people are interacting with the project. And that's a key part of making it all work, because you have to see where your fail points are. Okay, so as we said, we come in here and we're starting off with, everybody has a view of how they want the company to be. So I think it's really important to develop a mission statement. This buys everybody into the principles. So when you're speaking about digitizing of the business, everybody will have their own views of what that looks like. Developing something like this is locking everybody in. And if you want to migrate past this, or if you want to make any changes, well, then you'll do it on a process. But it definitely is a key part of a digitization plan to have your mission statement. So you're saying develop platforms to interrogate business data. So you're saying that by that, you are asking the business to commit to actually providing that information. So all the small things that we have on this will have a knock-on effect. So that it means that when you're setting out to digitize a business, you have the end in mind, and you also have the buy-in across the business, because this will be discussed before it actually becomes like the mission statement, the promise, the digital journey. All of those key parts will be discussed and agreed before they become set in stone, as they are here. So this is not to share what this is set in stone. We have someone up on a mountain carving it. Okay, so if we're talking about one of the key tools that we used was the Office 365 platform. I have seen in a lot of organizations that they will invest in technology and then not fully utilize it, or that perhaps you will have salespeople and you'd have a lot of people coming to you with different products saying, oh, you should use this, you should use that. And quite quickly you can end up with a dolly mixture, and everybody's logging in and out of 3 or 4 different systems in order to coordinate or to work across a project. If you look at Office 365, there are a lot of toys in the toolbox. And as a first step into digital, there are a lot of platforms out there that do this very, very well, but they are expensive. So when you're looking at how our business is at the start. If you have Office 365, if you've got the premium business, you've got an awful lot of tools that are there already. So one of the key parts of, I believe, transition is to get people into a digital space, to have them used to interacting with information on a screen instead of paper. They're transitions, and you have to see what the adoption is like before you want to go into some of these more bespoke environments, which are very good. Like some of them are absolutely marvelous, but as a first step, using what you have in your pocket is the best way. So I'm just really going to Office 365, the opportunity to minimize duplication of work is obviously going through your processes, making sure that you can see opportunities to minimize. And that's where using SharePoint as your common data environment really has an impact. The use of lists, because lists will feed into your dashboards. The enforcement of document management and control. And we all know what document managers should be, and we know how they have to be the ones who toe the line and ensure that whatever information is available is the correct, it's right in time, and that you've got whatever you need. The collaboration part of Office 365, and I'm probably going to go through this again a little bit more, but just being able to control who can see what. That is a key part of this, and the fact that it's relatively simple to do. It's not, there is work, but there's work in everything. But you can ensure that the correct people have access to the correct projects. A little note, I found that people have rarely had trouble getting in, which is quite good. And you know, you can then manage people back out at the end of the project. So having a little bit of control and structure around your security is a good part, and very simple to implement. The cost savings and reduced printing, well, that's also because you've shared all the documents with your subbies, with your supply chain. If they want to print, they're welcome. Happy out, go print. But it doesn't push the obligation back on us to produce a whole load of drawings that someone can roll up and put under their arms as they walk around the site. The improved productivity, definitely we see huge benefits in the common data environment, which, as we said, everybody has been using over the number of years. It's not a new concept, but it's now become our way of working. And it's what I found with SharePoint is that it's a very simple interface for people to go in and look through. So, okay. Now, we have to say that we have this is just talking about the back end from Mannings. So not necessarily talking about project delivery. Office 365, you know, the common data environment is more focused towards your project delivery. If we look at the other side of the transformation, that's making our staff accustomed to a digital world, okay? So in that, you place the information that they need at their fingertips. And in that way, you drive them towards digital. Now, as we said, we spent a lot of time on training. A lot of effort is put into speaking with the staff in order to get them into this line. And it can be quite surprising at like points in time when you go out and people are busily going on to the internet, finding it can be very satisfying to actually see that in action, that when they want to find something, they know where to go. So we have our management system is up and available. All of the training material, and just one of the things on the training material, a lot of the videos that we produce are incredibly short. So it's showing you how to do A, B, C, which means that you're not asking someone to spend 30 minutes going through something. If there's a problem, you know, they can search for the video and then it's there. And we would just record videos in-house with a little bit of talk over, so that you find out exactly what you want. So that's been incredibly useful. Developing the subcontractor database. Obviously, a database like this is an evergreen project, so you're always adding people into it. But it gives everybody the same place to go to look for subcontractors. And that removes an awful lot of the conversation. Not necessarily, I'm not saying conversations in a bad way, but you can go in there, you can find your ground workers, you can, you can see, have you used them before, what was the last project they were on, so you can put in information that saves conversations. And we also would have, say, that the last project with the project manager. So if you want to get a feel of how the subcontractor performed, or how the experience was, you can ask the project manager, which is the easiest way, because you never want to eliminate, like, no digital system is going to eliminate a conversation, but it should facilitate it, and it should give you the right amount of information to be able to move that forward, so that you're not starting from scratch. You can go and ask about a particular project, but you're not always starting from scratch. The forms and Power Apps, we have found that small things like the Leave app, vehicle checks, everybody got used to using those, because obviously everybody wants their holes. So, there was very little we had to do to drive people to the Leave app. Once you have them, opening up the applications, filling them in, submitting them, getting used to the workflow around it, that encourages them to use other parts of technology. So, and then just lastly on that is the project portal, which is a specific portal for our projects, which is where we share. So we very much we do silo our information. So we have what we have for internal, what we have for external sharing, and they're well insulated from one another. Okay, so just if we come back to how we are actually using Office 365 on the projects, we will invite our subcontractors onto the project. They will have access to all of the information that they need. So all of the drawings will be there. They have an upload portal. So we have got an approvals process, but it's very, I'm going to say light touch. Not that it's not effective, but it's not. I have seen some other systems whereby the whole approvals process becomes a nightmare, because if someone stops it on the way, it ends up where the information isn't shared. So we have the upload portal, which is the unapproved information. Client obviously has access to their own subcontractors and the design team. Our team will be notified when the information is uploaded, and then they'll say to the document controller, okay, this is all tickety-boo, share it with everybody. We share them, just briefly across it, that we share, we do share some of the forms that are done on our cloud-based platform. We also have all our environmental, if the subcontractors need to share information, they can upload into their section on this portal. And it is very, very much, it is the common data environment. We've all heard the word, but it just is, you go in, you've got the drawings, you get them there. You'll be able to quickly see anything else that you need, whether it's quality environment, whether it's, certification, all the consents and approvals, everything that the team need. The other part of it is that they can see, they can touch, but they cannot delete. So the only people who have full edit are on our side of the fence. So that means that we have this security in knowing we've shared it. We also have visibility. Just one more thing I'm going to say about SharePoint, and I don't actually get paid by Microsoft, is that you can see if someone has accessed a document, you can actually see that through the trace, and it's not very difficult. So if you set up the notifications, subcontractor has been given access to the information, he will have received an email saying that the drawings are there. You can then see if he's actually looked at them. So if someone comes back and says, I don't have it, you've got a certain amount of traceability. Not that we're following them home or anything. Okay, so this is what it looks like in SharePoint, and you can see that it looks very, very much just like File Explorer, which I think is really handy because it's familiar. You have the options, and just saying filtering, so that you can see the specific information that you're looking for. It's very, very fast. You can use it, like we say, across all devices, which you can. Now, you can open a drawing on your phone, right? You're not going to see an awful lot on your phone, obviously, because it's going to be a smaller screen, but you've got access to it. So if you need to check something, if there's something that's required instantly, you have it in your hands, no matter where you are. And that definitely saves time, because you don't have to constantly go back. And you can scroll away on your phone, you can look at a small detail, look at a note, see whatever it is. And that definitely is the way that you want to work, is that you've got access to the information when you're standing out on the site. And I would say that you know, that speaks to all of the notes there on the side. Like the real-time updates is, if someone uploads a drawing, it's instantly available to everyone. There's no delay in, they don't have to accept. You know, there's not really a refresh, because once you go on to the platform, it will update. So there's no like refresh or anything like that. And the collaboration part of it is, like, we have seen that our subcontractors and our design team are more than happy to have this, because they understand the value and, as you said, the enhanced security. Okay, this is our digital forms. Now, we might not take too much longer on these. I could talk for Ireland, but that's okay. So what I'm just going to speak to here is, this is another platform. So whilst I would say always use what you have, taking on another external service which will deliver benefit is always worthwhile. So we have it's Snagor. It's a separate tool that we used for the permits, for the site diaries, for, you know, the cleanup notices, and this has worked so well. I'm not sure whether we have another part on the actual permits here, but this shows you like what the workflow is on a permit. And we have found that the subcontractors on site have been, you know, like cats with milk, right? They absolutely love it, because it gives that clarity, and everybody's covered, because you can see that the permit has gone, they receive it, they sign off, and it's very, very simple to use. And it's also like, you have a signature at the end, but you also have people's names typed, and you have the clarity of what's happened. You've got the record, so you have all of the information that you want. Now, what we do is then we download all these records from Snagor and we upload them into SharePoint, so we have everything. And the project administration, this is about the induction forms. And we have chosen to use DocuSign for our induction forms, and this has worked incredibly well in-house. It is very simple. It is GDPR compliant, which is something that we all have to be so aware of, that information is not shared where it shouldn't be. You can completely control from the A to Z of this. It's just been very easy to use, and I have, in fairness, seen other systems, and I think that you can make this as complicated as you like, or you can make it relatively simple. And what we've chosen to do is make it fairly simple and straightforward. But we found that our supply chain are happy out. Like, you'll get somebody appears on site, normally the surprised people, which is common across the entire construction. You literally can send them the email. They'll do it on their phone. They can, you know, send photographs of their safe path, all of that. They send it back to you, and you have the records. So it's not like the piece of paper where they fill in the paper, then you're off trying to photograph all of their bits and pieces, and then, you know, file it in the filing cabinet. This is very, very easy to manage, and very, very easy for the end users to actually use. Okay, I think that that's just some of the other functionality that we've derived out of DocuSign. Maybe we're using it as an annoying tool, okay? So that it will come, I'm sure most people here have seen DocuSign, you know that when you send out an email, it will keep after you day after day until you respond. And that's how we manage, like the letter of intent goes out, it'll ask for all the documentation. BCAR again, and the O&M manuals, we're asking for documentation, and it will keep tipping someone on the shoulder. So you know they've got the request, and you know that they're getting a reminder every day. And that's like as much as you can do. You can follow up with phone calls, but at least it's fairly good. This is looking at the, just finally, I think this one is the final, is it? This is just looking at the dashboards that are associated with the Snagboard. So this is where you can interrogate, especially on a group level, because you can interrogate on individual projects. You can also then interrogate subcontractors. So you can look at behaviors on site, and this is where you start to feed into gathering some information and some intelligence from the products that you're using. So this in particular, just to say following snagging, you can see what's overdue. You can also do this with requirements, but it's a very, very handy tool in order to be able to just at a glance say, oh, this is red, let's go and find out. And you can drill through on this as well. This is just a small snapshot. These are using graphics from SharePoint. These are not even Power BI, so if anybody has been familiar with that, this is just literally using it to interrogate the list that you have. Obviously then you link your list to Power BI, and you can do an awful lot more fancier stuff. The drill down, the slicing of information, all that belongs in Power BI. But simply from a list, you can get a lot of graphical information. That's just a recap then on what we have put into our Snagboard. So this is all the forms we have available. I think we can probably fly through the end. And this is just giving you the benefits. This is a recap, and I think owing to the time, this will be available to you at the end. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer questions. And I hope that you have found what we've had to say interesting. Thank you.
Thank you, Sinead and Breda. That was a very insightful presentation, very, very detailed, got through a lot of information in a short period of time. Again, we'd ask anybody if they have any questions to pop them in the question channel, and we'll try and get to them. We're lucky enough to have quite a few in at the moment, so we might move to that phase pretty quickly, if that's okay. One of the things you said right at the very beginning was as part of the lean transformation is the transformation of waste into value. How do you define value, or what do you understand as value to be within Mannings?
That's for you.
I think value is us actually providing our service in the most efficient way. We want to cut costs both for the benefit of Mannings Group, but also that we can pass on to our clients. I mean, it's a competitive environment. Construction's always been competitive, so it's so important that you are delivering the quality, the cost, and the program on time. So I think all of the lean elements and elimination of waste definitely feeds into that.
And the next question really is around starting that process of transformation. You both joined Mannings relatively recently, and so on, and starting that process. How do you actually go about starting that process within a business, and particularly within a small business? There's a lot of change potentially required.
I feel that one of the biggest, like what your kickoff point has to be is, start with the end in mind, is that you have an understanding from like the leaders within the business of what the end is going to look like. So that's the thing about the mission statement. Like that literally is, speak to the senior team, have an open, honest conversation about what they want to get, and then be able to kind of define the timeline. So if you say, well, this is going to take 3 or 4 years, or this is, you know, these are the quick wins, but having that understanding from senior management as to where you're going at the end and what the progress will be. So you're setting up KPIs, you're saying like after 6 months we should have this, after a year we should have this. And I think that planning part, and you know what we showed there, like the mission statement, it can all sound a bit like, oh, this is for something for Amazon or something for, you know what I mean, larger organizations. But the terminology may be used in large organizations, but the thought process and the coming together of all the minds, even if there's only 10 people, you have to write it down.
And I think, sorry. I think, you know, when the leadership team in a company has that vision, and everybody's on the same platform, and they know the work that needs to be done, and they're all focused and working in that direction, the same direction, it makes life an awful lot easier.
Yeah, interesting. There's a lot of questions coming in really around subcontractor engagement and your supply chain. So you do your alignment piece within the organization, but construction by its nature has a large tail to it in terms of subcontractors, etc. You actually mentioned it, Breda, that they lapped it up, but that was it like that from the very start, and how did you engage and tell that narrative?
Okay, so I think a lot of the commitment in that is bringing it was the fact that we went out on sites and we met with the guys on site. So it was, instead of a top down, it was like a bottom up engagement. You were introducing, like you are, okay, so when I'm going to say you've got to divide your audience into, you know, people who are capable, people who are not IT savvy and not capable, and those who are capable but don't want to do it. So there's the 3 groups. What we did find a lot with these subcontractors is that coming out, explaining to them that this will save you time, right? This is, if I can issue the permit to you and you can sign it off on your phone, you don't have to come in here and do the paperwork. And it was the time-saving aspects. But I also think that if I say it was done in a very non-threatening way, does that if you can understand what I mean? Like we had Aoife went out on site, she'd meet the guys, they'd be doing their, you know, the site inductions, and she'd piggyback on that time when you had them in the rooms. So the Mannings Group induction was done digitally where possible, and then obviously the site induction is done, and Aoife would be part of the team there and would say, here, can I show you how to do this? We're going to show you how to do the permits. I'm going to show you how to do this. And we did find that most of the people coming out on sites, that just take the phone, they load up the app, and away they were happy out. Now, you're always going to have to deal with those who haven't got the capacity, but we found that was less and less than you think, right? So it's not as, or what you find that the gang would come out and maybe 3 of the lads would be perfectly capable and willing, but you might have 1 or 2 older people. I'm not saying age, because it's not always age, but you might have 1 or 2 other people, maybe language barriers or whatever. And the guy, you'll treat them as a team and work around it so that you get the end result and you haven't made anybody feel bad.
And I think you learn very quickly what the hurdles are, and you know, you find a workaround. But I suppose from my point of view, when we organised the first last planner session, we're trying to get, you know, a load of subcontractors into one room, and this is during COVID, and like I would have been concerned at that point that we were trying to push water uphill, and I was amazed actually at how willing the majority of people actually are. You know, when you explain what you're trying to do in a simple, straightforward way, people actually are willing to make the effort, and they do want to upskill generally. They're learning as well, and they buy into the whole maximizing efficiency as well. So they are, for the most part, people do work with you.
You're making it sound quite straightforward, but there's quite a number of questions surrounding what obstacles did you come across along the way, and in terms of even the obstacles that were there, but lessons learned along the way that you can share maybe with the audience.
If I speak about the site experience, it would be, you know, when you go on site, you've got to be a little, you have to approach in the right way. You have to kind of read the room. And that would be the biggest thing that we would say at the beginning, whereby we would have gone, okay, we're going to do it like this, and all full of enthusiasm. Whereas you really have to sit back, you have to get a small bit of the relationship with the subbies first. And that, like, it might only be 5 or 10 minutes, but there's a bit of banter or something like that. But that was kind of what we learned, was that establish yourself in the room as such, build sort of foundations of a relationship, so that if someone hasn't got the understanding or whatever, they're not sitting there quietly like the nodding dog, and then introduce it. So it's I suppose biggest thing would be time. That someone is going out on site and they could spend 2.5, 3 hours in order to teach somebody how to do something. Otherwise, it might just be 30 minutes. But you have to make that commitment to spending the time.
But I think in terms of obstacles, you know, when you're trying to sell change or something unfamiliar to people, you know, there's a tendency to put the barriers up, you know, oh, you know, this isn't for me. But again, I think if you tailor the approach, if you're explaining things, you're explaining the reason why you're doing something, and you're explaining that this is going to make life easier, so you get people to come with you. I think that's the biggest obstacle, and you know, if you can address that, you know, it makes life an awful lot easier.
So if we talk about internal in terms of Mannings in the organisation and your supply chain, subcontractors, etc., and that's all working well, what about the clients? Was there any resistance there, or how did you broach the idea of bringing lean principles to it, or how was it embraced, etc.?
I think for the most part, our clients are, you know, they're fairly well versed in using the common data environments. So it hasn't
really, like, we would sort of, you know, if you think the conversations like this, the top down and there's like, we're acting like the bridge. I don't know if you can still see me because I talk with my hands, but we manage the conversations downwards. So the clients, we have found that as time goes on, we tell the client, oh, well, this is what we're using, and they will ask for access, but we don't make it a dependency that they are fully embedded into it. Does that make sense? But it is important that the design team are. So the client design team they work with us in order to feed the information into SharePoint. And then our subcontractors are the ones who are coming to go fish as such. But the clients themselves probably don't have much to do with the systems. They just want to know it's working, you're making progress. So it's not, they like to see you have it. It's nice to be able to sort of show that things work, but they don't integrate that much with it.
It probably depends on the client.
Yeah.
You know, it's typical on construction projects. You know, some clients that are very involved in the projects, and other clients, you know, who appoint their design team or design build team. You know, so there's not there to the norm.
A question there came in terms of, was a CD common data environment protocol included as part of the contract or not?
Most of them it's not like, not in. Now we would push it downwards, so we're telling our subcontractors that we are using SharePoint, that this is how we're going to exchange information. But the client requests, sometimes you'd actually need to use their common data environment. So as we know, some of the big players will have their own CDE, and we will have to work with that. And then we'll have, as I said, like it's two halves, you know what I mean? There's the information flowing down to us, and then there's our distribution of the information. And from my position, I want to be able to, like, if the client has a common data environment that I'm taking information from, I want to ensure that we manage that information and the distribution to our supply chain, and that we have visibility over that. So there can be a little bit of double jobbing if the client requests that you use a certain platform, and then you have to transfer the information and supply it down. But that's covering your ass, if I say it that way, because you at least know your guys have access and you can see what they have access to and manage the information flow across the entire project team.
There's a specific question in around, is there a limit on 365 capacity? And if there is, have you started to look at any alternatives?
It's actually huge, the number of sites and subsites and the amount of information that you can store in Office 365. You get about a terabyte, and then you can increase that. So you don't have to worry too much about the management of it. It's a terabyte, sorry, per subsites. So you don't have to. You know, I'm not concerned about expanding as we speak at the moment, and we would have, I don't know, 50, 60, 70 projects up there. You do keep your eye on it. There is an additional cost, but the cost is they're giving you raw space. They're not giving you managed space, if that makes any sense. So the service charge is not as it would be if you were like a Viewpoint or maybe Project-Wise or something, where you're buying a more controlled environment. Whereas, say, when you're in Office 365, you're getting a certain amount of space, you're paying for a certain amount, and if you need to increase that, they're just, you know, opening the shutters and giving it to you. But it's not as expensive as expanding.
Okay, just one last question. Who's responsible for the system?
Pardon?
Who is responsible within Mannings for the system and operating it?
I am. I set the system, I set it up. I am responsible for the master plan, sort of the taking over the universe. We have an outsourced IT support, but from the point of view of setting up the projects, the access, and this is what I'm saying, like it's not heavy, because I'm also delivering other IT projects to the business as well. So once we got the structure in place for the project portal, and you know, it's an ABC on how a project is set up, it's not an onerous task. So I set up the projects, I will give access to people, and then and that's what takes up, you know, a small amount of your time over the week, and then for the rest of the time you're working on other projects like the digital, the dashboards, and you know, getting that data and business intelligence. So yeah.
Okay, that's great. Thanks very much. Again, serious thanks to Breda and Sinead for today's presentation, and doing a great job in answering some great questions there as well from the audience. Please note that a copy of this webinar will be sent out to everyone who attended. Information will be sent out shortly in relation to the next webinar taking place on the 23rd of March, and it will be presented by Kevin McHugh from Mace. For information on this and other webinars, the annual conference, the annual book of cases, and other LCI resources, please visit www.leanconstructionireland.ie and follow the Lean Construction LinkedIn group page. Finally, thank you to everyone again who attended today, and we very much look forward to meeting you in the future at one of the LCI events. Have a great day. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.